Hi, GCU community. My name is Peter Anderson. I'm the Assistant Dean over in the College of Theology, and I just want to take a few minutes to sit down with a friend of mine here on campus, Eric Nelson, Director of Spiritual Life, to talk about what we believe is a really significant topic that seems to be coming up a lot in students' lives these days. And I think Eric has a great perspective that you all will benefit from. So Eric, thanks for sitting down with me today. Just a few questions here to kick around. Share your thoughts, share your experience. I know the students will find it invaluable. So our conversation today is a little bit about ministry calling, vocational calling. So let's start off at the lowest level here.
Yeah.
What would you say is a calling to ministry? What do we mean when we say that?
It's such a good question to think about because many Christians or young people who are interested in ministry maybe have thought of that question. Am I called? What does a call even mean? It's just like a hard to define category.
Yeah.
A good way to think about this are two different ways to think about calling. Number one, everyone who's a believer is essentially called to ministry from the standpoint that they are called to be faithful to what Scripture says, to participate in the local church, and to live out their faith in a way that is, of course, obedient to Christ. So we're all called in that way. You look at the Great Commission, and Jesus tells his disciples, and really essentially us, he says, go and make disciples, and continues on there. But really that word go, it's like the light is green, like go, get out there, do what I told you. So that's really exciting. The second part, though, is that some may feel a more unique, specific call, like when you think about Moses, for example. The Lord called Moses to do this incredible thing, and you just see different parts of Scripture where God calls certain people to certain tasks. And so you might think, well, am I called? Because I feel really important about this topic. I feel excited about it. What do I do with that? And so I think today we can at least unpack that a little bit for those that are maybe sensing a unique call in their life.
Yeah, you actually position that really well, this general sense of call that all Christians have to dedicate all of their life to follow Christ and use all of their gifts and talents and time for Him. But then probably this specific kind of call is where I would guess a lot of students wrestle, is what is my specific sense of call? Could you share a little bit, how does a student maybe evaluate that sense of call, distinguish maybe between what is a general call to just serve Christ versus a very specific, okay, this is the task God's calling me to do? Are there any tips or suggestions you'd make for a student to evaluate that maybe sense of call?
Absolutely. And for those students out there who are feeling that way, I know the feeling because I am and working in a ministry role.
Yeah, we all probably have a ministry, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what's interesting is that can maybe start with feeling like, hey, I serve in the church in our youth ministry and I just love being there. I'm there all the time. I can't get away. It could be like, hey, everyone in my life is telling me, man, you're really good at that. Hey, it's amazing how you're so involved in the impact you're making. And so students might feel like, well, okay, what do those things mean? I would say that students should discern those experiences they've had through a couple different ways. One would be asking these questions. Do you feel a unique sense of calling? That can be very vague and ambiguous, like I think I'm called. But do you feel some sort of specific sense? Number two would be, have you talked about this with anybody? Like maybe your pastor, spiritual authority, mentor, someone who could validate that. Because you might be really excited and then they could say, well, let me give you a different angle here. A third would be encouragement from, I'd say, the masses. Like, do you have various sources reaching out to you saying, wow, it's cool to see how you're using your gifts and you should do that more? So that's three different categories. And then the fourth would be, what does Scripture say in terms of motives? Unfortunately, many people would want to pursue a ministry vocation or calling because they think it's cool. Maybe you can get famous or, you get to be on stage. Well, ultimately in Scripture we see humility, a lack of selfishness tied to a calling. And usually the people God calls specifically, they're like, whoa, are you sure, God? Like, are you sure you're right about this?
They're intimidated by the call almost, overwhelmed.
And so there's a sense that you don't have to be like, okay, my resume's in order, I'm just waiting for the call. God may put a call on someone's life and say, I know you're not ready, but I'm going to make you ready. And that's usually what we see in Scripture.
That's a great word. That's a great word. Okay, final steps, kind of practical here. Those are really great recommendations. Thanks. What does a student do right now? How does a student take some practical steps right now to maybe even live out their calling? Because some of what you described is, that first step is, where are you drawn to? Are you really plugged in a ministry role? What are your passions aligned? So how does a student start to live out their calling now, maybe to begin to sense, where are my giftings? Get connected to a local church and a pastor. How do they start to live it out now?
So the best thing to do and the most fun thing is just, I would say, try things out. It's like if a student is saying, if you're saying, I feel like I might be called, I'm not sure, try things out in the form of serving. Get plugged into the local church if you're not. Participate in service opportunities, youth ministry, leadership, and ask around, hey, are you called to ministry? How'd you get in your role? And really just have fun with it. It's kind of like when I was a kid, my parents signed me up to be in band as a kid, right? And so they were like, hey, you're going to play clarinet. So I played clarinet for a year. It wasn't my thing. But I was like, wait, that saxophone looks kind of cool. That's like the thing, you know?
Sure.
So I played sax for a few years. But it was really in high school that I found out that drums and percussion was where it's at for me.
So there are like 3 steps there toward like really finding that instrument.
Yeah, it's kind of like trying. And so I did learn music along the way, but it was when I found out, man, I really love playing drums. I actually started applying that in ministry and started playing with the church. So I would definitely encourage people to ask around, learn, inquire from faculty, staff, pastors, friends, family. But just keep in mind that if you get to the end of this journey and go, you know what, I don't feel like a specific call in a specific role, just know that everything you do as a believer is accomplishing the Great Commission as you obey Christ in that. So it's like you passing on the faith and discipling those in your life. That's ultimately the calling that we're all called to, and we're going to be fine if we just do that, for sure.
Great. Well, thanks, Eric, for sitting down with me. It's been a great conversation. Certainly a lot more to talk about here that we could unpack together, but thank you so much for introducing the topic so well for us. And to students that are watching this, there's another opportunity just around the corner. If you're interested in exploring ministry calling a little bit more, we have a ministry week that's coming up on our campus October 7th through 11th. And there's actually a link that's going to be embedded in this video that you can click on in order to connect with a person, a human being, to sit down and talk with them about what you're feeling, what your sense of calling might be, in order to explore maybe some of the concepts and ideas that Eric laid out so well for us in the last couple of minutes. So check out the link, check out this video and others that will come from a few other folks in spiritual life. Excited for those conversations. But thanks, good to see you all, and hope to see you at Ministry Week.